Well, folks, welcome to Nintendo Prime. We got a lot of stuff to talk about with Switch 2 and the games and news. And look, you guys know at this point what we do. If you don't know, I post daily news videos collecting the hottest news for the Nintendo, whether it's movie, video games, whatever the case. If it has to do with Nintendo in any way, even third-party games, we talk about it here. We collect it all together and we go over it. Hey, that's the point of the channel. But you know what also is the point of the channel? I want to give back to the community. And because I like to give back to the community, look, I do this for a living. So why not share some of what I make back to you? That's why we're giving away 3 copies of Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate for Nintendo Switch 2. You can enter through the link down in the pinned comment or the description. Also, talking about spreading the wealth has to exist first. And today, it exists thanks to our sponsor. This video is sponsored by the MobaPad M6 HD Black version. These are some of the best third-party Joy-Con available, and what's actually kind of crazy about this is you're thinking of Switch 1. What if I were to tell you these things are compatible with Switch 2? Now, look, it does require you buy an extra accessory to be able to attach them here. We have the MobaPad Joy-Con adapter for Nintendo Switch 2, but yes, the Joy-Con are charging off the system. They are working locally here, as you can see, going back and forth. Yes, this just made these compatible. This probably will make other Joy-Con compatible as well, maybe your original Nintendo Switch Joy-Con, but this is just really exciting because a lot of people have been looking for third-party options, and this is one of the best third-party options available right now for your Nintendo Switch 2. So right now, there's a Black Friday sale going on until December 1st for 20% off site-wide on MobaPad, and there's even stackable coupons with this as well, so you can have like your 20% off, plus like an extra $5 off a $100 purchase, $10 off a $120 purchase, $15 off $160, plus the additional 20% off. You can go ahead and check things out through the link down in the pinned comment or the description. But again, shout out here to MobaPad. One thing these do now, when you update their firmware, is they actually will wake your Switch 2 from sleep, which makes them the first third-party extra Joy-Con, whatever you want to call them, with that capability. So you can see them on the back. You can kind of see these things. Let me just show you this accessory here. So these pop off like normal Joy-Con do. They slide off, but then these things pop off like this. These are also made by MobaPad. They literally just snap on like this, and then these Joy-Cons slide on like you would expect. So anyways, folks, go ahead and check this stuff out down through the link down in the pinned comment or to the description. And again, shout out to MobaPad for sponsoring this video. All right, setting all that aside, I'm just kind of having a little fun to start the video. Let's go ahead and dive into this first story. It has to do with Digital Foundry. It dove into Tomb Raider Definitive Editions, big downgrades on Switch 2. There's a huge caveat with this, though, that I think is being completely overlooked, even though it is mentioned in the Digital Foundry video, and I don't actually find this to be a fault of Digital Foundry. It's more a fault of the conversation people are creating around it, as this is being used as a way to attack the Nintendo Switch 2. But it basically says a bunch of negative things. So what's more, the Switch 2 version Definitive Edition boosts many of the re-release pros over the PS3 original, upgraded textures, foliage placement, color grading, renders at 1080p in docked and in handheld. But there are some glaring visual omissions in the Switch version to get things running at the specs outlined above. Shadow density is pulled way back, foliage thickness is reduced, the advanced Tress FX for Laura's hair is missing in action, and many of the cutscene cinematics are dialed down for simplicity. It falls behind the Definitive Edition PS4's release in this instance, but strangely, there are even select points in the Switch 2 version that's even a step back from the PlayStation 3 original. There are no screen splat rain effects, the geometry is more simplistic, shadow coverage is a bit of a downgrade. Should be noted that these cutbacks also apply to the PS4 release, but as the Digital Foundry video states, the drawbacks are disappointing given the multi-generational divide between the systems. Now, this is all fair, but there's a caveat in here that is important to note when we talk about it being worse than the PlayStation 3 version of the game. The PlayStation 3 version of the game ran at 30 FPS. The PlayStation 4 version of the game ran at 60 FPS, but actually more so kind of stayed around 40 FPS for its experience. It hits 60 FPS consistently. Like, it's practically a locked 60. The only time they were able to get it to go below 60 FPS was on the Switch 2 version, that is. The only time they could get it below that was a cutscene. And the cutscene was running at like 55 FPS or something. But it was a cutscene. It had nothing to do with gameplay. So yeah, that's the big caveat. Now, on Switch 1, it is only 30 FPS. We all know Switch 1 compares more like to PlayStation 3. And obviously, they could have probably boosted this game more for Switch 2. They clearly just did a Switch 1 port and then kind of up-resed and did what they needed to do for Switch 2. They didn't really like natively port it to Switch 2 and have like additional features. Hair FX, as an example, could have maybe been a thing on Switch 2, or maybe not. Because if the whole point was to make it run consistently at 60 FPS, it doesn't do that on PlayStation 4. So, yeah, maybe people just don't care. Got to remember, at launch, it was on sale. Only $20, $18 because there was a 10% discount at launch. And here's the thing about it, running as well as the games run at $18, most people weren't complaining. So it's kind of weird because these games were essentially everyone was excited and saying positive things, and Digital Foundry drops this, and now the narrative is twisting because, oh my gosh, yeah, some PlayStation 3 features cut. It's like, well, dude, PlayStation 3 only ran at 30 FPS. Like, the gameplay is what matters the most, not the visuals, and the gameplay's better objectively on Switch 2. So take that for what you will. That said, we have some other news to get into today. This time dealing with Metroid Prime 4. Nintendo has revealed what the amiibo do. We're over here on My Nintendo News. And you can see here it says, Samus and Viola, you'll enable to change the color of Viola. Every time you touch your amiibo, you can check Viola's total distance traveled. Kind of neat. I mean, should be able to do that in the game, to be honest. Once per day, you can increase the rate at which Viola's boost energy regenerates. All right, that's fine. Then the Samus Metroid Prime 4 amiibo, you can now change the background music when riding Viola in Soul Valley. Once per day, you can activate a shield that will block up to 99 damage. When the shield is activated, Samus' life is also restored. So it's kind of a quick cheat code you can do to, like, during a boss fight. Oh, I'm about to die. Tap the amiibo. Tap the amiibo. Full health and a shield. I can see that being what some people do, especially if there's some really difficult boss fights. All right, Silex, Metroid Prime 4 amiibo. After clearing the game, you'll be able to see the full versions of the movies that are shown in fragments throughout the game, even if you don't have the amiibo. You can actually watch the full version of the movie by achieving 100% scan rate and item collection rate. I don't like this. I think being able to watch the full version of all the cutscenes back to back to back should just be available once you beat the game. I don't think it should require you to have 100% scan rate when the cutscenes aren't tied to scans. So I don't agree with that decision, but they're trying to like add perk. I literally believe that decision was just so they could have this perk for the amiibo. I don't like, I don't know. I've just never been a fan of tying this stuff to amiibo. Anyways, every time you touch your amiibo, you hear a random line from Silex. Okay, I think that's actually a pretty cool one. If you use any other Metroid series amiibo, the game sounds are just played randomly. It's nothing special. So there you go. That comes from Nintendo themselves. I know technically we were looking at My Nintendo News, but yeah, it's right off Nintendo's website. All right, next up, how about this game still being alive 17 years later? Beyond Good and Evil 2. So a brand new job listing was put up, which does mean the game is in active development. There's been some job listings for a while, but it describes it as being an action-adventure open-world game set in a captivating space opera universe and the direct prequel to the 2003 cult classic based on a breakthrough technology driven by the proprietary Voyager engine. Beyond Good and Evil 2 aims to offer a seamless experience of exploration and some piracy across a solar system full of exotic locations. Look, the point is this game has been in development for 17 years. If it releases, it'll be the longest developed game in video game history. Duke Nukem holds the record at 14 years. This has already been in development longer than Duke Nukem. But yeah, I don't know, guys. I know the game's being worked on. Whether or not it ever actually gets released, though, I don't know. The expectations on it are at a point where no matter what they do, if they ever do release it, it literally can't meet the expectations. There's just no way. But I'd love to be proven wrong. All right. Next up, Nintendo's doing another weird thing with Metroid Prime 4. And I say it's weird because they don't do this very often. Metroid Prime 4 in Canada specifically. Look, I have to be on the Canadian website. If I switch it to the US, I can't even read this article. They're going to have some streamers play Metroid Prime 4 Beyond on Wednesday, December 3rd, the day before the game comes out. And those streamers are fairly big ones. This first one here's got like a couple million subscribers. However, their videos don't get a lot of views. It's kind of weird, but some of their walkthroughs have gotten a lot of views. It's very interesting. So it's a sponsored stream. I pretty much just assume they're not being paid or anything like that. It's probably just hey, we're going to give you early access to the game. We're going to promote you, yada, yada. Way to get you in front of more people. Tetra Ninja is a YouTube content creator and a full-time gamer who's been sharing his passion for video games with the community since 2010. He's best known for his Let's Play series. And then there's this person who's obviously more on the French side, French Canadian. And he's actually around my channel size, but also doesn't get a ton of views. And he's a duo of video game enthusiasts made up of Guise and Laurent. Nostalgia is recurrent. I assume that these both are just really family-friendly content creators. I think that's the biggest thing. If Nintendo's going to do something like this, it has to be strictly with super family-friendly content creators. And some of us bigger Nintendo content creators aren't necessarily 100% family friendly. We say things and talk about things that Nintendo probably doesn't want to directly associate with a brand deal like this. That said, it is interesting. It's only happening in Canada. We're not seeing this in any other territory. It's not happening in the United States. I'm not jealous. It's just weird, but hey, it's extra promotion for the game. I kind of feel like if they want this promotion to work, they should have worked with, a bunch of us. The more, the merrier. That being said, we're not done talking about Metroid Prime 4 because I'm going to combine this story in there. Yes, Metroid Prime 4 is out now. Metroid Prime 4 is already out on the street. This is bound to happen. No, it's not leaked online, so you're not seeing people pirating the Switch 1 version yet. But the fact that the Switch 2 version's in this guy's hands, yeah, guys, it's only a matter of a day or two before the Switch 1 version leaks on the internet and is being live streamed. And just letting you guys know, it hasn't technically happened yet. It's not being pirated yet, but it will. It will. We all know it will. All right, next we have an update for Nintendo Switch Online. You guys might have saw this late last night. If not, we have this plus some additional details they did not announce. So we're getting this obviously from Nintendo of America here, and we'll just hit the play on this. They added 4 really good games for literally. They just added these last night. I'm really excited about these ones. We got Battletoads, of course. Finally, Battletoads. I wondered if we were ever going to get Battletoads on the NSO app. Really happy to see it. A very difficult game, as many NES games are. But this is a very good game, a very rewarding game for the difficulty it has. But yeah, it's a classic, all-time classic. Really glad to see Battletoads back. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Now, they're going to slowly get here into the next game coming, which is also a very, very good game for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Ninja Gaiden 2. That's right, the Dark Sword, baby. Oh, I'm so glad to see some of the OG Ninja Gaiden stuff coming back. Again, another one like Battletoads that just feels like a long time due. It also shows that Nintendo still has so many more bangers to release for these older platforms that they have decades and decades of content to keep trickling out. And NSO service just keeps getting better and better when more of these high quality third-party games for Nintendo's old platforms get added in. Because these are the ones that will take the longest because, again, licensing deals, all of that. Then we get to Game Boy and they're adding Bionic Commando. Hell yeah. Dude, Bionic Commando was a big part of my childhood. So really happy that people are going to get to play it again or experience it for the first time. Just think about how many games you can play on a Switch or Switch 2 just by having an NSO subscription without even buying anything. And then you have the free-to-play games on the eShop. Quite a bit you could actually do on these systems these days with just an online subscription. Anyways, really excited by Bionic Commando's that. And then Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters. It makes me just want more Kid Icarus, to be honest. Whether it's an Uprising style game or going back to the platforming roots, I just want more Kid Icarus. And I'm really glad that Of Myths and Monsters is back and now people can experience it for the first time. Or maybe not. Now, here's the thing. While those games are available, and that's really cool, something else came with this update Nintendo did not advertise, but is important. Switch 2 and Switch Game Boy and NES apps gain remappable controls and Game Boy Easter eggs. So with the latest update to the Nintendo Classics, Game Boy and NES, remappable controls are now available. You can access the functionality on both the Switch 2 and Switch. The Game Boy app is at version 3.0, while the NES is at version 8.0. This feature had previously rolled out to apps for other retro consoles on Nintendo Switch Online. With it, players can decide what they want each button to do. That is awesome. When playing a game, access the suspend menu, then head over to view and change controls, and finally hit change controls option to rearrange the setup. We'll also mention the other thing. For Game Boy, there's a new Easter egg of sorts, assuming you have the latest update. If you hold the left analog stick in any direction on the initial boot, the handheld's classic start screen will be shown. This varies based on which game screen setting you've chosen in the settings. The remappable controls for the Switch 2 and Game Boy and NES apps come as part of the latest update. So this is good. This is just some nice stuff. I wish Nintendo would mention this stuff at times, but it also just leaves more for us to discover, these little Easter eggs, these little cool things. Next up, this story to me is actually interesting. So We know about Nintendo and Microsoft, and at the time they bought Activision Blizzard King, they signed a 10-year deal for Call of Duty. So at some point, Call of Duty is going to be coming to Nintendo platforms, or maybe just Switch 2, for 10 straight years. And it's supposed to be feature parity, crossplay. You know, you're not supposed to be left wanting, right? I think is the best way to put it. And feature parity, I would assume, means you got to be at 60 FPS. You can't be at a competitive disadvantage. All right, so that's all cool. But, you know, we're to the first holiday season. Black Ops 7 did not come to Switch 2. It is supposed to be day and date. So those that thought maybe we get the game from last year, well, again, Switch 2 didn't come out last year. The contract says day and date. So it can't be something that comes out later. So that being said, we know we didn't get the Call of Duty this year. We know that Microsoft got most of their dev kits this year. So you might think, well, next year we could get Call of Duty. And you know what? We might get Call of Duty beginning next year. But we now know for sure, or at least it's in development, that Call of Duty for 2027, because the 2027 one is being made by Sledgehammer Games, we now know factually they are targeting Nintendo systems with that one. As we go in here, we're on Activision's official hiring website. They're hiring a senior technical artist for animation tools at Sledgehammer Games. And the biggest thing is down here, the bonus XP section, where they mention it's a bonus if you happen to have mobile. Of course, they put Call of Duty on mobile, or Switch experience. That's right. They want people that have experience developing AAA games for Switch or mobile. Now, you might go, oh, does this mean it's coming to Switch 1? I don't think it really means it's coming to Switch 1. I think they're just using Switch as a broad term. Family of systems, Switch 2 is part of that family. That's what I think. I don't know, but it at least suggests Call of Duty 2027 is targeting Nintendo platforms as well. Is Call of Duty next year targeting Nintendo platforms? We don't know, but Call of Duty 2027 is from Sledgehammer. That's pretty exciting. Sledgehammer also happens to make some of the better Call of Duty games, so that also has people a little excited that that is the one that it could potentially start with, although it might start with next year. And given that people don't really like Black Ops 7 this year as much, maybe this was a good year for it not to start on Switch 2 and start with hopefully a better Call of Duty in 2026 or 2027. Either way, it's finally evidence that that contract is still in place and it's going forward, and it's just taking some time for them to get the Switch 2 into the development pipeline. All right. This last one's just a neat story. Sometimes it's nice to have these fun ones, and this is a fun one. This comes from Engadget. A designer in Singapore created a functional Super Nintendo inside a wearable Nike sneaker. That's right. Here it is. Look at this thing. Look at this thing. Dude, that's sick. Like, you can wear this sneaker. It has the Nike logo. Obviously, it is, themed around the Super Nintendo. And then you literally could hook up AV cables off the tongue and play some games. I'm assuming, you're not plugging in physical games. I see no physical game slot here. So I assume it's probably just preloaded digital versions of SNES games. But anyway, it says, have you ever been roaming around collecting bananas in Donkey Kong Country on SNES and thought to yourself, gee, I wish I could play this game on my shoe? The designer, Gustavo Bonzanini, set out to make this dream a reality, and he did it to celebrate the 35th anniversary of Super Nintendo's launch in Japan. I created the Air SNES, a throwback custom pair of Nike Air Max 90 sneakers that doubles as a completely functional SNES console. He said the idea came after looking at collaborations between sneaker brands and video games. I always asked myself, wouldn't it be cool if these shoes that look like a video game could actually double as a console? I don't think anyone's ever thought that but him. But Bonzanini said in a press release shared with Engadget, the shoe was created using a Raspberry Pi Zero W running RetroPie emulators. There you go. It's emulated stuff. No surprise there. The shoe has a battery capacity for 30 minutes. So there's enough battery in there that you can show your friends some of your favorite SNES games, and then that's about it. And it has an integrated HDMI port. So that's good. So you don't have to use the AV ports he showed. You can use HDMI. For those with nostalgia for old school display connectors, the shoe also has the small analog converters. There you go. This art project was my way of celebrating both and pushing the idea of what sneaker culture and tech can become when they merge. I think this is pretty neat. Obviously, it's a one-of-a-kind thing, but dude, it's pretty cool. This is so cool. I'll probably end up putting this in my thumbnail a bit because this is badass. This is awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel RoboJets from Nintendo Prime. You guys are awesome, amazing, epic. I appreciate all of your support. Kind of a wild, high-energy, sporadic video. Things happen, man, all right? I'm trying to enjoy my last day here before we get to Thanksgiving tomorrow. We're busy with the fam. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here. We have the Nintendo by podcast tonight. Hopefully I'll see all of you there. Otherwise, peace.